Welcome, everyone. Today we have Dr. Saloni Singh with us and an amazing soul. She's a life coach and a mentor, and I'll let her introduce herself to you.
Thank you, Dipanshu, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, really. So you know me already. So for our audience, I'm Saloni. I'm a life coach. I coach CEOs, leaders, and I also mentor coaches. I feel my work is all about helping people grow professionally, personally, but mainly spiritually and mentally. So really getting connected with the true essence of who they are. So that's briefly about me. And from my previous profession, I'm a doctor, I'm a gynecologist, and I followed my calling to become life coach. Rather, I feel like life coaching found me, and this has been a blessing for me.
Beautiful. And that's simply so surprising is not the word, but it's so beautiful to witness a doctor who is like completely on a scientific side of things to becoming a life coach, who is kind of partial scientific, partial, like spiritual, and then also doing like completely on the other end of spectrum work of spirituality, right? So I'm very
Yeah.
curious because you have done a lot of work over the last couple of years with, so many clients. Um, what is a common thread that you have seen and witnessed in people that helps them connect with their spirituality?
It helps them connect. Okay. So not first, not couple of years, rather, it's been 15 plus years, Dipanshu, that I've been in coaching. Yeah, just I thought I would mention that. And why I mentioned that because I have noticed over the years, like people are becoming more and more aware. First thing I would say, like in the first few years of my coaching, I would say it was more about they wanted to deal with their emotions, just want to feel better. That was the main thing people would come, or they have a goal to grow, in their professional space, or they are having any challenges with their relationships. It could be personal relationship with their spouse or children, or their professional relationships. But now people are becoming more and more and more aware that they are spiritual beings, which means just if we really simplify it, it's nothing complicated spirituality, just to understand who we truly are beyond our conditioning. So going back to your question, like that's what helps people to understand that they are not their conditioning, they are not the ideas which has been given to them by society. Rather, there is more to them. And coming back to, their original, essence, the way they were born. So this is what's the first step to spirituality and the spiritual awareness. And of course, there's a lot of layers to that, as you know.
Oops. Yes. And that brings me to the question because I'd want to mention this resonance as well. A lot of work that I have done around spirituality and so many other stuff is reconnection with inner self, right? And there's a meme that I sent you. I'll see if I can put somewhere in the link later,
That was lovely.
right? So, I want to know in your words, in your experience, when you see that people come back to their own self, when we, let go of that like identity and learnings and conditioning, what happens in that case?
Ah, that's a beautiful question. It's like a lot of people describe it as expansion of the being.
Mm.
Most of people first time realize like as if their being is being expanded so much beyond what they thought is possible starts to happen. Like I've experienced in my life, like miracles over miracles happening when I've, started my spiritual journey. It's like you are thinking this is the way you are. This is who you are as a person, as a professional, as a, son, daughter, mother, father, whatever roles you have. So we are all very bound to our identity. That's what I've realized in my own journey as well as with my clients. And the moment we start to let go, kind of these all these identities, all these foundations, first thing that happens is a sense of freedom, expansion, and there is a deep peace they start to realize. So that is the first thing I think most of people realize, and that's why they get hooked to this as well because they feel that yes, there is so much more. I don't have to be, just after things which society is telling me to be and do. There is more to life basically, and when we kind of stop and pause to feel that, to experience that life in that way, there is so much joy, there is so much bliss. And yeah, as I said, the once you experience it, you want to experience it more and more.
Yeah,
That
that
happens.
brings me to a personal question. What has been the most surprising insight or lesson that you learned about spirituality? Something like as a lived experience.
That's a lovely question. One of the most profound experience that I would say I've experienced, and it took me a very, very, very long time to realize it, to understand and embody, is that I already am what I'm seeking for. I realized that I always was working on, from the very beginning of my coaching journey, I was working with people, both men and women, on self-acceptance, self-love. And one of my first mentor, Dr. Robert Holden, he's a psychologist who did research on happiness, and I attended a lecture with him, and he said something very, very beautiful. And I went on the stage and asked, like, no, that's not right. So let me just share what he said was that no amount of self improvement can compensate for the lack of self acceptance.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's lovely, but I want to be a better mother. I had two toddlers at that time, and I was like, I want to be a better mother. I want to do this better. I want to be a better coach. I had just become coach at that time, and so I had a good debate with him. Like that made me understand the very first time the difference between this incessant, race for self-improvement and how we are lacking self-acceptance in that. And what does true acceptance means? I think for the first time I understood, and I did, of course, my work with Robert, that true self-acceptance doesn't mean accepting like, oh yes, I get angry, I get reactive, and that's who I am. I accept this. Rather, it's about really knowing who you truly are. It's about accepting your truth, that in truth, I am a patient being, I'm a loving being. And yes, I do lose my temper sometimes. I do react in certain situations. And the more I accept myself as a divine being, actually, the less this happens. It's the other way around. Yeah. So
I'd
yeah,
want
this was the
to
most
build up on,
profound.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go,
I
go,
want to
go.
build up on what you were saying because I actually have a very personal experience with that as well. That I found myself in a place where it's like too tough. I hate where I am, like in my college time. So I went on this journey of like obsessive self-improvement. I'll like do the productivity thing, the mindset thing, I'll do the emotional regulation, all that stuff. And then at some point I realized the self-improvement is on the other spectrum of self-acceptance. So I started chasing the other thing, like how can I accept myself completely?
Yeah.
That made me gain like extra 10, 15 kgs and like this is also not working. So how do I balance it out? And then we realize that it's about, how do I create both at the same time, right? How do
Mhm.
I improve and accept? How do I, the same way, how do I have a great business and a great life, right? The
Mm.
both and concept. Thank you for sharing that. That was so, I resonate with that a lot.
Also, I want to add something what you just said. It's very interesting what you said, that because I don't feel they're on the opposite spectrum, to be honest, Dipanshu. I feel that we are not clear about self-improvement at all. This was my personal experience. So a lot of time we improve when we go in guilt, or I got angry with my child. I lashed out, I raised my voice, and I go in guilt, and then I start feeling bad about it because I feel that if I feel bad enough, I will improve. So mostly this is the strategy we have been fed, that if you feel bad enough, I don't know where we got this complete like crazy idea, that if we feel bad enough, if we beat ourselves enough, then we will improve. Versus if we start to accepting that I already am what I'm seeking for, and yes, I can improve in my behavior, I can improve my habits, I can improve my, food habits, exercise, whatever it is that we're trying to improve, my anger or my reactions from that place of enoughness. That's what I realized. So it's like self-acceptance is like at the core. So accept my being, not my and not my behaviors, which might not be nice for other people. I mean, we're not saying like you accept everything. If I'm eating junk, then I just accept I keep eating junk. So a lot of people go to that extreme as well. No, no, I accept everything if I want to binge watch, I will do that every accepting who you are actually you are, and then work on improving your skills, your habits, your behaviors from that place of acceptance. So this is what I understood, that this and that works beautifully in sync with each other.
I 100% agree with that. The moment I kind of realized, okay, this is not working or that is not working, I had the same kind of understanding as well, that um, improvement coming from a place of guilt or shame or self-hate, it's not sustainable.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
Like, how can I have both? How can I love Dipanshu of this moment as well as Dipanshu of 2 moments later?
Yeah, I love that.
Right. Okay, so I'd want to know, as you work with a lot of CEOs, leaders in corporates as well as coaches, what are some very basic misunderstandings that you have seen in terms of, let's say, acceptance and spirituality?
So one of the most common thing I think people do is they live on, like I call it, like a only if island or someday island. It's like I will be happy and content, Saloni, if I reach this level. And this level could be now, if person is on the spiritual path, that also becomes like a race. Okay, if I am meditating regularly, journaling regularly, and doing this, then I'll be really happy and content with myself. So some of them are on a accomplishment, ladder, where I accomplish this in my professional life, or I accomplish this in my personal life or in my spiritual life. Then I will be happy. Then I will be content, and then I will accept myself. So the bar of acceptance is too high. Versus then we work about it and I ask them, what if you accept yourself right now? And from that place of love and acceptance, then you start to do whatever you want to do. Not because you will be happy then, rather because you're already happy. You are so happy that you want to meditate more. You're so happy that you want to impact, create a more impact in your organization. You're so happy that you want to lead, one more team. So let it come from a place of joy and happiness. So it's like, I will not be happy when I reach there. I'm already happy, and that's why I want to reach there. There's a difference. It takes time. It takes time for people to understand that. And a lot of people, ask me, and this is the most common question when I, share this concept. But how can I be happy when I have not achieved my goals? So it's a common question. It's a big myth. Like people straight away say, "But how is it even possible, Saloni, that I have this goal, and I'm very ambitious. And how can I be happy when I have not been there?" And the first question I ask them is this: can you guarantee you'll be happy when you reach there? How do you know you will be happy when you reach there? That stopped them in their tracks. Because you will be surprised, Dipanshu, that they already know. No one has ever said to me, Saloni, I know I'll be happy. Rather, it's amazing. Like every person says, oh my God, I know I will not be happy. And I used to feel surprised, like, really? You know already? They're like, yeah, I know. I remember a lady I was working with, and she became a vice president. And she told me, like, literally, she was preparing for this, post for 6 months and going crazy, so stressed. And the next day, she had a session with me, and she came and she said, by the time they were opening the champagne, I was already anxious. What is next? She was like, I could not enjoy like literally 5-10 minutes of that stardom as well. And that made her realize, like, oh my God, I'm doing this wrong way. This is something. And that's what we talked about then. Like, what is this race? So most of the people know this already.
Hmm.
Okay. That's not the guarantee of happiness. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have learned this kind of conditional behavior, putting conditions on, ourselves, putting conditions on the things we want, desires, as well as the states we want to receive, the states we want to experience. For example, the state of happiness, the self-love. Like I give this example to, ask this question to a lot of people. Um, that if you are not productive, if you don't do any work for the next 1 week, if you can't get that done, will you still love yourself? Will you still be accepting yourself? Or is your self love and acceptance really, really dependent on how much work you get done?
Mm.
Right. Um,
Beautiful question.
and that brings me to that, point where it's like, their own emotions, like not their, like our own emotions, we have learned to put it out on an external um, occasion.
Mm.
Like only if this comes true, I'll be happy. Only if my mom is happy with me, I'll feel okay. Have you experienced that, the inner outer perspectives?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And even I've experienced that many times when we put our happiness to something outside of us, like, oh, if this person really pay attention to me, then I will be satisfied and feel content. We all do that, yeah. And it's that's what the spiritual path is actually, at least to recognize when we are doing it. The first step is always awareness. Like I think that's people ask me, oh, you never get upset? Do you never become a victim again? I'm like, of course I do. The difference is, if I was doing that every week now, maybe in 3, 4 months, 6 months that happens. And if I was taking like 7 days to come out of it or 2 days to come out of it, now sometimes just an hour or maybe sometimes just like literally 10 minutes to come out of it. So the frequency becomes less. The way you come out of it is so much faster. And while you are in that state, you are so much kinder and compassionate towards yourself. Like, okay, today is my day where I'm being a victim. So that's the first step. Like you become really compassionate towards yourself. Like, okay, that's all right. Watching yourself, what's happening here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all do that.
And something that I have also witnessed in myself and so many other people is, even though we know, like to surrender, to accept, to love your neighbor, and like all that kind of stuff, um, why is it hard to actually practice it? Why is it hard to actually be that who does all that stuff?
Mm. Because in reality, knowing doesn't do anything. That's the truth. In current time, I tell people we all have so much gyan. Anyway, it's like world is full. Google and YouTube is full of all gyan. It's about we are not taking. I feel we are not taking enough time to practice it. For example, if we talk about spirituality, I always tell people it's the simplest way to test whether you're really growing in your spiritual journey. Are you becoming a more loving and kind person? And that includes you, first and foremost, to yourself. Have you started to, beat yourself less? Then will come the neighbor, then will come the spouse, then will come anybody else, your parents or anyone else that you're complaining about. But are you complaining about yourself less? So I think it's more about now, as you said, we are our attention is so much outside, and now courtesy social media, it has gone even crazy for all of us. So even people for 5 minutes, we can't, sit idle for 5 minutes, for example. I realized it, like especially if you're in a queue, if you're waiting for your appointment in the lift. I noticed once, like, why is it that I just take out my phone and check if there is a message? Why I can't just be still? So that was the first thing I totally believe in. Whatever I'm coaching and teaching anyone, first I implement on myself. So I made it a point that no matter what, if I'm waiting somewhere, my phone is going to be in my bag. I'm not going to, rather, let's interact with the neighbor who I only meet in the lift most of the time and have a chat. Similarly, in the shops or anywhere where you have to wait. So I think it's more about that we're so distracted that we don't even realize we are doing it. And the more and more we stay with ourselves, we come to some kind of stillness. That's when we can really connect with ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so very true. Creating space.
Creating space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I'm curious to ask, like again, a personal experience that you may be having. Where are you in your spiritual journey recently? What have you been experiencing and maybe running away from? Not trying to push, trying to understand, because you have been on this journey for a long, long time, right?
Hmm.
So I wonder how the journey looks at this stage for you.
To be honest, my journey has always been on about just one thing, Dipanshu. I think I was very lucky, I would say, maybe gifted. I'm a person, I never run away from my emotions and anything. I've never run away, to be honest. I don't know. It was just natural. I wouldn't take any credit for it. Used to tell my friends that I just cannot remember once in an interview somebody asked me about a regret and I could not think. I don't do regrets and I don't run away from things. My journey has always been about self-acceptance, self-love, and dropping the judgments. My work, as I mentioned about my mentor Robert, he does work around love. His work is all about love. So what came out after a couple of years working with him was that for me, love is dropping all judgments. That's for myself, for anyone who is whoever I am with the person in front, the first people in my family, everyone. And I think that's the journey I'm on. There are times when I find myself in a state where I feel like, wow, no judgment is coming to me. There is no judgment at all. And I'm like, wow, I've reached a great level. And then something would happen. I go to a meeting, maybe with strangers, maybe something, and I realize, oh, okay, I can see my judgment. I can hear my thoughts. So, there's a judgment coming. But awareness, of course, I would say in recent times, I'm highly aware, I would say. Even if a thought pop up in my head, a judgment thought, I know it, I always catch it, and I can just watch it. And the beauty of spiritual growth is that you just have to watch. You don't have to do anything. The moment you watch, it dissolves in your being. So I don't have to reframe. I don't have to do anything. That's where I would say my journey has been now recently watching. And to be honest, in last couple of years, I think still it's so amazing. Still, the most judgment I find is for myself. Much more than others. So I tell people it's a long journey. I can at least say with my experience, 15 years been, and I still myself find myself judging myself the most. And it happens more with coaches as well. That's what I feel working with coaches because we are in a profession where we set very high standards for ourselves. And there was a time when once my daughter, I used to work with parents in my early, coaching journey. And once I raised my voice, and my daughter said, "You can't do that, mom. You're a parenting coach." I'm like, "No, I'm a human first." Like, I'm a mama. I can raise my voice, and of course, I don't want to. But it made the thing is, it was not about telling her, because more than her, I set such high standards. Like, I can't make a mistake. I'm a parent coach. I'm coaching so many parents, and I really have such high bar. And I would feel so bad even if I just once, be angry or raise my voice, or even just little bit of, snapping. Oh my God, how could I do that to my child? And then I would have to tell myself, it's okay. I was stressed. I was going through something. It's okay. It's human. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I don't want to, be more polite. But of course, it's so much more important to accept. And then, as we discussed before, then improve. Yeah.
So whoever is listening and watching, I just want to point out something that Saloni mentioned in between that 2 minute part. Um, and I resonate with that a lot. I've experienced that, lived that, where most of freedom comes from living as a third person in your own mind.
Mm.
A lot of it, because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs throughout the days. Some people are going to like shout at you, belittle you, judge you, mock you, whatever. Regardless of how healthy environment you live in, there's always news happening, something wrong, something great is happening in the world. Most people have this very natural tendency of being like in judgment or feeling hurt, wanting to hurt others, or whatever, you know, uh, whatever your poison is. And the ultimate freedom is literally just to witness and not to act, not to,
Yeah.
reframe it into something positive. That's what toxic positivity is. Like, oh my God, I can always be happy. Of course not. If I'm judging someone, that's okay. I am judging, like that acceptance part that we were discussing, right? So thank you so much for bringing that up. And one last question, second last question.
One thing, can I say something? You said something beautiful just now. I want to add one sentence to that. You said about not being happy all the time. That is another misconception I feel, Dipanshu, that people have about spirituality, that you have to be positive and happy all the time. No, there will be things. You might lose a loved one. My father, as we were talking, my father has been unwell for some time. So, of course, I'm going to be a little worried and concerned about my family member. If somebody's not well, I'm going to feel their pain as well. That's very, very human to feel pain. And it's normal to go through different, spectrum of emotions. The thing is, as you said beautifully, like being the third person, we don't attach and become so identified with our emotions. So we don't start to suffer with our emotions. That's what spirituality is.
Yeah.
That you can watch yourself, right? Today, somebody is not well and I'm feeling low as well. Just noticing it and being kind with yourself. That's what it is. That's what true spirituality is. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to do whatever I can do to make myself happy, even though, hell is breaking loose or whatever. That's not what it is. Yeah. I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for adding. And the same, um, response that whenever I'm judging someone, for example, like a judgment thought came up in my head. Oh, this person is so dot dot dot. Like that's a classical judgment thought, right? And instead of labeling myself, oh, I'm so bad that I did that, or oh, I'm so good, I'm morally high than them or whatever. What if I'm only know, oh, I did that. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that judgment thought literally loses its all power.
Yeah,
Right?
totally. It loses its grip.
I'm not good, I'm not bad. I am
Mm.
simply what I am.
Yeah.
Right?
The smile, I tell people, the smile has the power. You just smile at the thought, like, oh, wow, how interesting. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody would want to work with you, get in touch with you, what would you have on offer? How do you help people, by the way?
So, as I mentioned, Panshu, I work with coaches to help them become greater coach, setting up their businesses. Also, I work with CEOs and leaders for both their personal and professional journeys to basically evolve spiritually, mentally, connect with their true essence, their true nature. So that's the kind of work I do. And it's deep inner work. So I tell people there's no symptom fixing happening here. There's no three strategies to become rich. I don't do that. So it's deep inner work, and through that energy and inner work, you naturally start to thrive and flourish. That's the work I do. For to connect with me, people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and they can find me and connect with me through my website, salonising.com as well. That
Yes,
would be the best.
I'll put the link in the description somewhere, so please check. And thank you so much, Saloni, for being here and spending this last 30 minutes with us. It's such a privilege
Thank,
to have you here.
thank you so much. Thank you, and you have lovely questions. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you, Dipanshu.
Thank you, Saloni. And thank you, everyone who's watching and listening. I'll see you sometime really soon. Enjoy.